it's very different from the books and the movies they put out.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. Another question, I guess this is towards you ladies. We had someone ask, are they forced to be housewives, the women? And, like, what do they do with their time? So I don't know if Mrs. Schrock, you want to answer that first? Or?
I would say they are looked down on if you would choose to do something else, but for the most part, that's what everybody does, and that's what is expected from you.
Yeah, I'd say it's expected, and it's looked down, but when you get married, you're just expected to be a homemaker, and there's always so much things to do. You make your own clothes, you cook, you do gardening, you help on the farm, you do everything there is to do. You have babies, and you have babies year after year, so you're busy. Like, it's expected. There's just no way that you even have time to work out. You're just working right at home 24/7, no matter what. So yeah, it's expected, and you just wouldn't think of it. Yeah. Young girls work out some, but after you're married, there's just no.
But there's a lot for you to do. Like, if you had talked to me a couple of years ago, I would have been like, what in the world do the ladies do in the house? Like, how could you spend a whole day in the house doing stuff? But what are a couple things they tend to fill their time doing?
Like, even their free time.
Yeah.
Quilting, and maybe sometimes sew crafts, or there's some that would, before they have children, they would do things to sell.
Yeah.
Gardening is always on the list.
I know that.
Raise vegetables, bake.
My aunt makes cards and stuff like that with her free time. So.
Crafting.
A lot of crafts.
There's a ton of things you can do. It depends if you're creative. Depends if you want to do it. I did a little bit of crocheting, but you have to learn if you don't know. So there's just so many things. But I guess from my own personal experience, I was not as creative. I was just very, very busy. Because I would help him on the farm. I would put down silage. I was a pregnant lady. I got up this silo full of silage, and I would throw down the silage. Wow. And I had 3 boys, and I tucked them in the barn and say, you stay right here till I am down from the silo, because he was out in the field. And he had some back issues, so I would do all the hard work I could, no matter was I pregnant or not. I did everything I could to help the farm rolling. And then we had about 17 cows, and I would milk over half of them by hand. So I had no time. I had no time for nothing else. Till I ever got done with the farming with him, I would be in the house cooking and getting the children to food, get them washed up, get them to bed. It was laundry, it was ironing, it was so much stuff to do. I had no time for crafts, but those that do, there's crafts and all kinds of stuff you can do, but it's just not working out.
So for the ladies, doing laundry, that's a big chore, because they got a big, large family for one thing, and they don't do the wash and dryer doesn't run by the push of a button.
No.
You got water going.
That's another
You've got to heat your water on a stove. You might carry your water from wherever, a hydrant or a faucet or something, and put it on the stove, and you heat it, and then you get it off the stove, put your hot water in your wringer washer, and then you do your clothes. You got to hang your clothes out in the clothesline to dry, and so it's 1 day a week job in between meals
just to do
the laundry. Then the fabric material they use for their clothes looks really wrinkled up if they don't iron it. Yeah. So all your shirts and dresses and all need to be ironed.
It's just not quite as quick as the American culture you can do stuff in.
I'd like to add something to that.
Yeah.
Because it fits in with, what my wife was saying about all this work. It's no excuse, but it's the way we looked at it. Is earlier was mentioned about how nice it is, how they help each other, with hospital bills and stuff. Well, we were one of those that fell in the category where they didn't help us. And that's why we struggled. We did everything we could financially. Because when our first one was born, we had a big hospital bill, and the list just kind of went on. And so that was one reason why she helped as much as she did outside. We had to pay the bills to make ends meet. And when we had our hospital bill, they decided they're no longer going to help couples with hospital bills from having a baby. Because they said then they'll just be careless, and because they wanted you to stay home to have a baby. And well, with complications, you need
Yeah,
to
sometimes
need
you
the
need
hospital. And so, we already were home from the hospital, and that next Sunday, they announced that they're not going to help anymore. And so we had a real big struggle. That's where this all came in. So we worked like some, looking back, we way overdid it. But at the time, we thought that's what we need to do, to pay our bills.
So I guess bouncing off that question, do the Amish use today's medical services that are offered, or do they prefer to home remedy a lot of things, or how is that viewed in their communities or in your communities specifically?
I would say they try their best to do whatever they can with home remedies. And in some cases, they should use the doctors, the hospitals more than they do. And they will when there's no other route around it. For an example, I had a younger brother that that needed medical help. And my parents never did enough doctoring. They never found out really what the problem was. But he tried home remedies for years and years and years. And I'm not saying it didn't help him at all, but it wasn't the kind of help he needed. He needed a lot more than what he got through home remedies. And so you see some of that going on because they do not have they help each other, but they don't actually have an insurance policy. So even if the churches help one another with their hospital bills, in many cases, the individual still ends up paying thousands of dollars out. So they will avoid it if at all possible. But they are not opposed to using doctors and hospitals just like we are today if it's life-threatening and that sort of thing.
Is that the same case for you guys in your community?
Yeah.
Pretty close to?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty much the same. We did what we could at home, and I agree with Melvin where he said that, sometimes it seemed like they waited a little long, but that was kind of their way, I know a friend of mine that their son had problems with his appendix, and they went in very late. They finally went in, and the doctors, they warned them. They said, this is not good. And they mentioned about, if you keep doing this, you'll lose your children. So, but not a lot of people do that, I don't think. But it happens because they're trying to save money. They're trying to do their own thing.
Well, it's expensive without insurance.
I know. And so, but I think as a rule, I think they do really good. To keep it in check, keep it in balance, not just quickly run, but yet go when it's time. That's how I would see it where we were at.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
A fun question. What's your favorite Amish meal?
And then describe what it's like so that people understand.
John, you go first and work your way
All
around.
right.
I think.
I'm thinking of my favorite Amish meal is mashed potatoes and gravy and chicken and sweet corn and applesauce. Then have a nice cherry pie to go with it afterwards for dessert.
That's really similar to our wedding meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was always, and then today mashed potatoes and gravy is, and something that was always a treat with that at Thanksgiving time, and once in a while other times, was that homemade dressing. My mom could make the best homemade dressing. And we always had bread to go with that. We had bread every meal. They took that homemade bread. They took that in the Bible where it talks about your daily bread. They took it literally. You got to have bread on the meal or it's a sin with your meal. And so we had bread, a lot of fresh bread. Mom would bake it, 2-3 times a week. She'd bake bread. So the meal was awesome. I always enjoyed it. It was filling, and it stuck to your ribs, we called it, to go out and work hard because it was all manual labor, was physical labor. It was a blessing.
What about you, Lydia?
I'm going to take breakfast for my one of the favorite meals. Elsewise, it'll probably just be the same. So breakfast is like when we had, it wasn't every morning breakfast, but we cooked the corn mush, like cornmeal flour, and we made it. So we actually made it, like cooked some milk and stirred the cornmeal in there and made it very stiff. It's kind of like a pudding type, but you made it very stiff, and then you pushed it into a cake pan or a loaf pan, and you let it set for a while, let it cool, and then you can slice it into slices like little thicker than bacon, and then you fry it.
Oh,
you fry it in oil. So we call it fried corn mush and our traditional Amish tomato paste. And then we had like sausage or, most times, sorry, I have to take that back, liverwurst. What do you call that in the English? Liverwurst. I'll just say liverwurst.
Liverwurst?
Liverwurst.
Yeah.
That was the best thing. So you put after the cornmeal was fried, you put the liverwurst on the cornmeal bread, fried corn bread, and then your tomato gravy on top of the liverwurst, and then some onions on top of that. And that was the best breakfast you can get.
Interesting. We'll have to try that.
And the liverwurst we made ourselves from butchering.
Okay.
So we took beef and pork, like we'll butcher a cow and a pig and throw all the bones together in a big copper kettle and cook it, and then we grind it. So we made our own liverwurst and seasoned it and canned it. And so you had it. Open it up and just cook it a little, add salt and pepper, and so that's a traditional Amish breakfast for a lot.
Interesting. Is that standard for the Amish to have that large of a meal for breakfast normally? Because like I know from my background, like we would have as kids, we'd have cereal and a glass of orange juice, and that would be our breakfast.
Very traditional to have a breakfast, because what it is, you go out and chore. So some people do their breakfast like early morning, like 5 o'clock ish, and then we eat breakfast and run out and do chores. And others will do their chores, milk cows, and then come in and have a breakfast. So you work hard, you're hungry. Yeah, we don't do that anymore. We have a very light breakfast. Sometimes, like Saturday morning, I'll have this heavy breakfast. But yeah, Amish, every morning you have your breakfast, lunch, and your supper all day. So.
What about you, Mrs. Schrock? What's your favorite meal?
I would probably say the tomato gravy over the fried squash. You would slice the squash and fry it. And the tomato gravy is made with milk and tomato juice, and thickened with flour.
Yeah, that's good. I've had that one. What about you, Mr. Schrock?
Oh, I would say I loved mashed potatoes and gravy, and I loved the Amish canned their meat. Okay. So having fresh hamburger that was never canned was a treat. So we'd usually butcher in the wintertime, and then we'd fill up a couple bags, and we'd put it in a container outside of the house and keep it frozen, and we could have frozen fresh hamburger for a month afterwards. So having fresh hamburger patties along with, mashed potatoes and gravy. And then we had a vegetable, like, I loved all the vegetables, but probably my favorite was like green beans or something like that. And then if I had a pie of my choice, it'd probably be coconut cream or something like that.
That's different. Very neat. What is dating like in the Amish? Because I'm pretty sure it's very different from the English standard of dating.
We were just told something about it last night, or this morning actually.
Was it this morning?
Yeah.
Was
we were
I
sitting
there?
in the chair.
Oh yeah, that's right. So, I don't know who wants to go first on that, but
You want to go down?
I'll go. Dating was a good time. There was things that obviously now as Christian people, I wouldn't want to, we wouldn't do it that way. But the way our dating, or I experienced dating life, was they told us how we're going to do it. And for, Lydia, my wife, she was in a different community. We weren't the same community. So they had this standard that you had to use the couch, sit on the couch. And the community where I grew up in, our church had a standard, you have to use the rocking chair and only one. So this was a little bit of a difference.
Yeah.
And so that my parents, they thought, well, you shouldn't use a couch, you could lay down, and that would not be a good thing. And her parents were thinking the other way, well, sitting on a rocking chair, one chair, that is not a good situation. But as far as the experience, I think as far as our situation, it went real well. We had a good time. We didn't get into trouble by the grace of God, I can say that, And then it was such a good time of getting to know her. you know, it was, for me, it was a fun time.
Mm-hmm.
I thought when I got to started dating Lydia, I had the world by the tail, so to speak. You know, it was so much, I just enjoyed it, because I always looked forward to that time after I was like 12 years old. I'm like, man, when I ever get a girlfriend, that is going to be the time of my life. And I can look back and it, you know, it was a real good time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there was things I regret, obviously, but it wasn't like anything major.
Right.
You know, it was just, we had a lot of fun together. And then her friends would, you know, in her church, her friends would do cut up and stuff like that, and kind of made it fun. I think the worst night we had is we were sitting on the couch and having our date, and we thought we keep hearing something in the basement. And we just, I said, I think I heard something. Yeah, I thought so too. And it was all quiet. Okay. Anyways, all at once the basement door that came up into the living room bust open. So obviously there was somebody there. So what these boys did, they got in through the basement window.
Oh,
And so
really?
when they came upstairs, they asked, do you want something? Of course, they wanted to see us, you know, what we're
It
doing.
was a cut up.
And so they asked if we want something to drink. We said, no, we're fine. They said, they're going to make us coffee. I said, no, I don't really want any. They made us coffee. They brought it in, and it had salt in it. It didn't taste very good. And as we go for our first sip of coffee, they just took sugar.
Yeah.
And they dumped sugar all over us. I had sugar in my hair and my ears for weeks. I couldn't get it out. It was supposed to be funny. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the coffee tastes bad, and the second they threw the sugar over us, they took off, running out of the house. And knowing me, I took off with my cup of coffee, and they were wearing suit coats. And I just took this cup of coffee. When I caught up with them, they're heading out the door. And as they go out the door, I went, splash, right over the back of one of them. And later I felt bad because, I mean, he was one of my best friends. But this is the way his mom found out. When she went to clean his clothes, she's like, what is on your suit coat? It's all stained up, you know? And then the church, you know, then it went to the church. But I didn't mean to do that like to cost, but it did. They kind of clamped down on that. But I thought it was kind of fun, you know, but that was a little bit of my experience.
Dating in the Amish was pretty interesting because we just dated by man rule. So my community was a little different than him, as he said. But the reason I think that we had to use our sofa or the couch was because they figured, you know, sitting beside each other would be better than versus sitting on top of each other. So I think that's why my community had that. They thought, you know, they're maybe more spiritual and would be safer way, but they had no idea that the couple could slide on the couch, you know, and lay down, and, you know, it gets cheated. But anyway, that's part of it. But my community was, we were supposed to have a burning lamp. We weren't allowed to sit in the dark, and his community, they were supposed to sit in the dark. That was the rule of the church, is that when you're dating, you, in my area, we were supposed to have a lamp. So us girls would get these little dating lamps. They were just about like this tall, and they were very cute. Put a little oil in them, kerosene, and had a small little wick, and you could light it and just have it sitting on your dresser top or something, and it would make a dim light. You didn't want a bright light for some reason. You just had that dim light, and just more romantic maybe. Well, I guess they are romantic after all. But just in that dating time, you know, they had a little light. So that was a difference. Every community has their differences. Every community, but yeah, I think my community was actually not too bad. I was raised in more of a not quite so strict community, so, but still we were not Christians. And, yeah. Another thing, my community, they did cut-ups. Way back in the day, my dad was involved in cut-ups, and they were horrible. Like, they would take the guy's buggy wheels off, hide the horse's harness, and so in the middle of the night, the guy would want to go home. He could not find his horse's harness. So it really mellowed down when I was in the youth age. We did cut-ups, but it was very clean, like just coming in and just visiting or peeping through the window and not letting the other couple know what's going on, or dumping coffee, you know.
So it's just like little prank things.
Little prank things, and it was fun because I was in it too.
Yeah,
I went and cut up on my friends, you know. So it was fun.
Yeah.
But some areas it's not allowed, in other areas it's fine. So yeah.
What about for you guys?
We did love in the dark. We weren't required. Well, I don't know. We didn't really. Our parents didn't really tell us what we could do and what we couldn't do, and neither was the church.
Hmm.
Well, I guess he came from a stricter church than I did. So, but as far as my church, there was no time set what time we needed to be done. So we kind of stretched it on.
Sounds good.
So what was the practice like in Medford?
Not really anything.
Chairs?
No, they didn't. Just whatever you chose.
Can you just give like an outline of what a normal date, like a timeline of what a date would be like? Kind of from the start to the finish of it?
Yeah, you could like start out on the guy's side, and then you could like what the girl's perspective was.
He would take me home from our singing.
How did it work for you? Like, what was your like? How did you get from the singing to her house? Like, what was that process like?
So, on a boy's perspective, usually on a Sunday night, we would have what they call the singing. That was for young folks, anybody that was 16, 17 or older, not married, would attend that. And we'd have an hour and a half of singing, which a lot of times we would start either like at 7:30 or 8 o'clock or something like that in the evening. We would start singing. About an hour and a half later, the singing was over. So we'd visit a while, and that's when you would ask a girl out. And so a lot of times you didn't go ask your own girl for a date. You sent your friend or somebody like that to go find your girl and tell her, ask her to go out with me. And what that meant was you'd give her a ride home to her place, and then you'd unhitch your horse, and then you come in the house and you'd like we used to rock her. I held her on my lap and we had love in the dark. No, I was from a more stricter community, so we were told at 1 o'clock the date time was over. And if we went
1
over
a.m.
that, at 1 a.m.
Wow.
So it might have been 10 o'clock by the time we got to our house. So we had, 3 hours or whatever. But if you extended past that 1 o'clock time, you probably received discipline out of the church.
Oh, wow.
So now, Medford, where my wife was from, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
So I took advantage. We'd push her out till the wee mornings of hours in the morning. It was starting to get daylight, and here I was going on my way home, 4:30 in the morning.
And you'd be up for chores for the next day.
Yeah, I'd get a half hour of sleep or something like that. So for me, when we would date in Medford, so then I would push it to the limit. I'd run it out till the early morning hours. And I'd be going home and get home at 4:30 in the morning or something in that order. Getting daylight or whatever. Get an hour for the sleep, and then I was okay as long as I kept moving. As long as I didn't sit down for the day, and I tried to find something that I wasn't driving horses the next day or something like that, so I wouldn't fall asleep. But so that was pretty much extended. But then after we were we're a steady couple, not just ask her out for a date, but when I asked her if she would date, she would consider going steady. Then I would go pick her up, take her to the singing, and then after the singing was over, I'd take her back home again. That was what the steady couple did.
Okay.
What were you going to add to that?
That's the time that he quit when we were dating in Medford. As long as he left before the rest of the people got up, we were good.
Very interesting. So then you'd go for a couple dates, you'd be going steady, and then what was the process from there to getting married? Or was there much of one?
Well, not a lot. What it amounted to is I asked Lydia if she wants to marry me.
Kind of like the engagement.
Yeah, but it's like just her and I know it.
Okay.
Where engagement now in the Christian circles, we make it known in the church or.
Do they do like rings or anything?
No, they don't have no rings, no jewelry at all.
Okay. Yeah, with plain.
And then when I asked her if she'd marry me, and she said yeah, and so we started planning our wedding. But so then we had to get our parents involved, obviously. But you wouldn't really tell anybody. And so a week and a half before we got married, it got published in the church. They announced it, and then the way they do that is so we get announced after church. The bishop will announce it before people are dismissed. And so when we got published, engaged, so then we leave. As soon as we're engaged, we leave. I take her home to her house. And that afternoon, we write all the invitations.
Wow.
We write them all that afternoon. The next day, they go out in the mail. And think about it. That's Monday morning, and within 10 days or so, we're getting married. So now we gotta, make the rubber meet the road there, because we got all this food and everything to prepare. But ahead of time, she would make her dress, and I'd have my suit made.
We do it in secret.
Yeah, everything is behind the scenes.
So you can prep a little bit.
Ahead of preparation, and your invites, like who you want to invite, you have that kind of ready. And the further is away, people, we put a bug in their ear, like, hey, our wedding is coming up. Can you hold a date? Just so they have. So we do cast it out to some people, like just so they have a heads up what's going on, because it's short time. It's not like 6 months.
Interesting. Very different.
For us,
Go ahead.
for us, when we got published in church, we actually were for almost 3 weeks, right?
Or 4 weeks.
Almost 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks, until we got married. So we had a little bit more time getting ready
You're
for the
good.
wedding and so forth.
Just so. That's fine.
Okay.
So anyway, but what was I going to say?
3.5 weeks.
So a little bit more time.
A little bit more time, so after we were going steady, and we already talked about perhaps getting married. She had told me she would, but we never set a date. And then my cousin come along and said, "Hey, heads up, we're gonna get married this fall, and I'm just letting you guys know. You guys want to have your wedding about the same time?" So he was my cousin, and his girlfriend was my wife's cousin.
Oh, cool.
So we had some of the same people coming from out of state for the wedding, and so we made it 2 days apart. They got married Tuesdays, and we got married Thursdays. And we lived a mile. My wife and his wife were a mile and a half from each other. So.
Okay. Yeah, this is a kind of interesting question. I'm trying to think of how to word it. Do the Amish really discuss? Are there certain topics that are just completely ignored and not talked about, such as like with where children come from, or other topics of that sort? Are there things that they would just hush you up and don't worry about it type of topics? And how did that affect you, even coming in from? I mean, I don't know if it did affect you coming out of the Amish, but were there things that you kind of had to learn or had a learning curve to coming out of the Amish because of those? Mr. Schrock, Schrocks, if you guys want to go first.
That was a subject that, talking about where the children came from, anything about birth or pregnancy was never discussed in our home. It was like a forbidden big secret, So,
Rose, I hear you talking again. That'll be picked up.
Can you whisper?
No, Ashley doesn't know how.
Ashley did.
so that was a subject that was never talked about. I remember when my next to youngest brother got married, was born. All of a sudden, Mom was taken to the hospital. The neighbor man come up, and Mom and Dad went to the hospital. I had no clue. We lived in the same yard as my grandmother's place. And then later on in the afternoon, one of the other neighbors pulled in the yard, and so I was curious to see what he wanted. Grandma told me to stay in the house, but I went to follow Grandma out there, and this guy said that Mrs. Schrock had a little baby boy.
Oh.
And just want to let you know everything went fine. And then Grandma scolded me and said, "I told you to stay in the house.
Yeah.
You don't always need to come out." But when my youngest brother was born, I was old enough. I could tell my mom was pregnant. I knew she was expecting, but there never ever was a word mentioned in our home that Mom's going to have a baby or something like that. That was forbidden. But just certain things that you never talked about. So coming out of the Amish, that was a huge obstacle in my life to overcome, to openly talk about something in that order to our children, to our other people around us, because it was just something that maybe married sisters would talk, the women would talk about amongst themselves. But as far as, especially not with any men or anybody outside of the family. And so you want to add anything?
As far as in my family growing up, that was not talked about, and I remember two of my youngest brothers when they were born, and all of a sudden one morning there was another woman in our house and was cooking breakfast for us. Mom was gone. It's like, and then I went in the bedroom and there was a tiny little baby on the bed. It's like, I had no idea.
There's an addition.
And then for my youngest brother, I remember all of a sudden Mom was in the bed with a little baby. I was almost 8, well, I would have been a little over 8 years old. I don't remember seeing that she was pregnant. All of a sudden there was another baby there. Nothing was discussed about it or anything. It's just...
But even when we got married and left the home, her mom never would even openly talk to her about her pregnancies or what to expect, or was given zero information. Those things were just found out as life went on.
Interesting.
Now that wasn't like that for everybody. I know that some moms would have talked to their girls about it before maybe right after they were married.
But you were even told nothing about even growing into a woman or like
No.
what happens when your body matures, like nothing.
I knew zero.
Wow. Was that the same for you guys then, experience-wise too?
Yeah, it was very, very secretive. My mom would tell us the basics of coming into puberty, give us some information on that, but very, very little. But she had a stillborn baby. It was my number 7 sister that was being born in our family. And so we had my uncle and my aunt lived just down the road. So they're like, hey kids, you need to get to the neighbor's house right now. Just go down to uncle's and stay there. And we did, and we had no information. So we came back home later. They told us, now you can go home, and we did. And mom and dad were in the bedroom, and there was a stillborn baby, full birth, full term, healthy, laying there. And I was like, I just thought, well, God, you gave us a dead baby. I had just no idea. I figured it just came from heaven. And we did ask them, where did this baby come from? And they did say that God just sent it down from heaven, but it's not living, it died, so we'll have to bury it. So that was a shock, because we had no idea anything was happening in our family. And I was probably like, I don't know, would I be 10, 12-ish in there, but there was just no information. And that's how they do with the church. Like, if you're not a member of the church, everything under member, like if you're not in that age to be baptized, you're not a member. Everything's quiet. You don't hear the parents talk about a church problem or anything going on inside the church. You just okay. I seen this one guy one time. He was shunning. He was shunned. He sinned something. He broke a rule, or then he just had a personal thing going on, and he was shunned. But he had to follow the ministers to their meeting every 2 weeks. And as a child, you're like, what's wrong? Something is strange. But when you asked, there was zero information on, well, he just messed up his life, or he just didn't listen, or, you just don't know what's going on. So that's another thing that never gets discussed till you're a member. Then you just see it happen. Like, then you know if somebody's shunned or what's going on in the church. So there's so many things you never get information on. You don't know. You figure it out yourself. And it's kind of an empty life in a family. It's like they don't say, what's going on. You just don't know. You figure it out and you try to. As you get older, it makes more sense. But totally no information, zero information.
Yeah, that's how I found it too. It was so secretive, and when I first, I didn't know where babies came from. I really didn't, and I was told to come from heaven. And I know my friend and I would talk about it sometimes, just wondering how did they come down from heaven and nobody gets hurt? We were certain, because we're looking at the sky and we're like, "Boy, that's a long ways," and we just didn't get it.
Yeah.
And obviously, I didn't know anything about that stuff for many years. And even when I was never taught anything about intimacy at all. That's how we got married. I didn't know. And I mean, it was just, to me, we were left in the dark. But how it affected me then is, as a young man, I wanted to figure this thing out. Because we were on the farm. So we obviously, we work with cattle and everything. And so by not knowing, I think it got us into some trouble. And I think that's the downside of it, being so secretive. Because if we were taught, we would have understood and we would have appreciated that part of it, and we would have looked at it a different way.
As a beautiful thing.
Yeah, as a beautiful thing rather than something that, hey, maybe we can figure this out between me and my friend. And some people don't want to just figure it out, they want to try it out. And the Bible says that's sin before marriage. So that was kind of my experience of it.
Okay, if you could have stayed in the Amish and just kind of tried to work out your differences,
Would it have been possible?
would it have been possible?
As far as if I just wanted to continue on trying to be this good Amish person they wanted me to be, yes, I could have continued living. Now, if I wanted to change towards more godliness, studying my Bible, personal relationship, my own personal prayer to God, and then, just following the Bible, following God, I could not have openly done that without being shown in the community we came from.
What about you guys?
Yeah, that's how I found it. That's part of my testimony is, I think I shared earlier, when I was born again, I did preach the salvation message and they kicked us out. Some people ask me, why did you leave? I said, well, we had no choice. Because of sharing Jesus Christ, the blood of the Lamb, because of that that's how we lost our connection with the church and family and all that. So, but without, if I wouldn't have got born again, say without that, I could have very easily survived in the Amish. You had to fight. You had your fights and things going on, but with living for Christ openly, I could not have survived there.
Last question, just a little bit of a fun one. What is your favorite Dutch phrase? And then can you say what it is in English, or say what it is in English and then say it in Dutch?
I say the Dutch one first. Do the Dutch one.
Do the Dutch one first and then say what it means in English.
I like
You can think about it.
Or just like something that tickles you or whatever.
Oh, one of them, I couldn't even put it in English. I don't know what it means in English.
We'll say it and then we'll.
You need to pause it a little bit so we can
Right,
think
okay.
of it.
Gotsa family. Remember that? Gotsa family.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, what does it mean in English? I don't even know.
How would you
Probably
use
kinda
it?
like it's
Like if
Not
something
a swear word.
something bad happened. No.
Isn't it like a swear word in noun? Okay.
I don't
Is that
know.
family or family?
Gotsa family.
Oh, that is a lot
I've never heard that. You might have to take a
That means
different
like,
one.
oh, that's terrible.
Oh yeah, it means that.
That would be
Oh,
the
okay.
expression of it.
Gotcha.
So it's like, oh my word, or holy cow, or something like
Yeah.
that.
Kind of an exclamatory expression.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta think a little bit.
Mine would be probably like when you're doing something, it's like all at once. It's like "ken verstand," meaning like, I thought I know the meaning.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Like it's just like it was a word that you use a lot. Like something fell to the floor or you broke something. "Ken verstand," or maybe your child got into something like "ken verstand," like oh my goodness or something like that.
Yeah.
It was just a simple like word we used a lot.
My dad would say, "Shikti chero," means behave yourself.
Did he have to say that a lot for you?
More than I'd like to.
Did you have one, Mom?
I don't know.
Like,
How could I translate it? Like I was thinking, you would sometimes say, "Was the Hund?"
What in the
Well,
world?
What in the world?
what in the
Yeah.
world is a good thing, but if you translate it word for word, it's what the dog.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But I think that's all of the questions.
So that's all of our questions that
Did
we
you
had.
wanna
for
add
you.
that?
One verständig, another one.
Yeah.
Like it's unbelievable, you know.
Huh.
Or
What?
my mom would say, she would say, "Du bist ein Schrotzer Labby.
Yeah.
You're just so naughty."
One of the funny ones for me is busting that dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the left dog.
I don't even know what the
Well, how did
translation.
you translate that?
I don't even know.
What the left dog? Kind of like what a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhat a problem.
But it sounds more funny in the German.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like some people say they had quite the left dog, you know.
Yeah.
quite the problem, you know.
Yeah. That was all our questions we had for you guys. Thank you so much for being
This
willing
was awesome.
to sit down at the table and answer our questions, and we really appreciate it. And I'm sure all of our viewers as well will appreciate it because they have been asking for it. So thank you guys so much, and hopefully we'll get some other time to do it with you.
Well, thank you for letting
Our
us.
pleasure.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
welcome.
All right.